proper kind of pop at me, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I think if we stay up this season, I'm walking away. Like I'm done here. And I was like, but I'll tell you this: if we get relegated, someone will need to remove me physically here, because I'm not leaving if we get relegated. Like if we go down, I'm making it my mission to get us back up. And
today I'm joined by Dave Black, the COO of Livingston Football Club.
I'd be lying, or you take a lot of that personally. Like, what was that my fault? Was I was too inexperienced? Was I the wrong person to lead the club? If someone else had done that, would they have maybe just had that extra wee bit to keep us up? Or could they have got more money in? Need the manager to sign better players? And we made the decision in the summer. Davey and myself and John Ward sat down and we said, okay, and it might be the case that on the last day of May we'll have no money in the bank, but we have one chance.
Hi guys, welcome back to Taylor Talks Trades. I'm your host, Jamie Taylor. Thank you for joining me today, and remember to hit subscribe so you can help us grow the channel and bring you more episodes like this. Today I'm joined by Dave Black, the COO of Livingston Football Club. He gives us a look behind the scenes at what life is really like inside the club. Dave shares his incredible journey from turning down the job at first to taking on the challenge and working his way up to COO. He opens up about the tough moments of relegation and the unforgettable highs of leading the team back to promotion. Let's get into the show. Welcome to the show, Dave. How you doing, mate?
I'm all good. Thanks for having me along. Great to be back on a different sort of position from the Livingston one before, but not good to be back in.
You're a seasoned veteran in here now. I'm so tempted to just go back to my usual and always go, right, I go back to the start. How did you get into the trades? But I'm not going to be lazy and do that today. It's probably a wee bit of a different episode, but I think there's going to be loads of bits that can tie together. That's the running of a football club, how that's similar to trades businesses. We've been talking off air before we came on, and there's loads of bits we're relating on. So I think there'll be plenty of stuff like that. But I think if we can go back sort of to the start, how did you get into football, or what was happening before that? And let's get a wee bit about Dave Black, the bit that maybe nobody's seen, behind the scenes kind of stuff, and then we'll go into the journey about the football and all the rest of it. And we could end up doing any rabbit hole as we usually do. We've built this relationship over the years more through the football club and then but even before, I think we've done a podcast before we came on, basically, haven't we? So welcome to the show, mate, but take us back to wherever, as far back as you want to go.
I think, and not to be just kind of club man all the time, but football for me has always been Livingston, and that was just through time. So Livingston moved from Meadowbank to Livingston in '95. So I was only 5-6 years old. So that was my first. I was born, if you like, into Livingston to an extent. I didn't really have football before that. Wasn't interested. And my dad and my granddad kind of got involved, and we went along to the first game back in '95. And that was it. Kind of that became the weekly tradition. We got our season tickets, sat in the same seats forever, went home and away. So that was it. Me and my dad travelled all over the country, right through into my kind of teens, and that was it. My dad then kind of stopped going. My granddad started coming along, and then same thing. We were going every Saturday, wherever it was, home and away. I then started getting involved with the supporters club, so I was helping run the buses to get fans to games. Sat on the board of the supporters trust. Just got more and more involved with it, but the club was helping. I remember going down one Sunday afternoon to go and clean seats and paint steps, and it was all just kind of volunteer stuff, and kind of lived and breathed the football club just as a fan. Played for the supporters football team, ran that for a number of years. So it's always been not even just so much football, but Livingston's always been my kind of big passion. Played football as well at no any level, just kind of youth football and amateur football. And then my first job, started working with my mum in a company called Entrotech, not far from here, selling door entry systems. That was it, just nothing to do with football. It was just first venture into work. My wife fell pregnant with our daughter, so my wife went to college and uni. I just worked to bring money in. And then through the Supporters Trust, I met a guy, Stephen Dow, who owns a company in Edinburgh. It was Football Nation. They're now called FN Teamwear. And he was opening a second shop, and I'd kind of spoken about looking to try and move on and do something different. And went for a coffee and a chat, and ended up moving work and working in Edinburgh for a company called FN Teamwear. So what we'd done was kit supply, football kit supply for grassroots, for professional clubs for overseas. The company grew, and the teamwear element was something new for them. Really enjoyed that. It was great. Became a kind of business development manager, so was really enjoying my time there. And I think had I stayed there, my kind of trajectory was probably to become maybe speaking out of turn, I think would have probably become a director. It was going to be to kind of take the company on. Stephen and his business partner Stuart Everest had grown the business superbly, and I was living and breathing that. Loved it. It was dealing with guys that were coming to buy football kit, so it was. You already, even if you were in tricky situations, something was late, there was a delay, something had went wrong. Oh, did you see the game at the weekend? And it was nice and neat. You could just start talking football, and it just took them away for that problem. And it was all I knew. So I knew football. I could talk football all day long. So it was easy. It was and kind of the customer relationship side. And I got just after Livingston got promoted to the Premiership 2018. I got a phone call for the club. I spoke to both David Martindale and John Ward, who were both at the club at the time, and the club probably wasn't ready to be in the Premiership, and it didn't have the structure for it to be a Premiership club, and both of them had got in touch and said, listen, we need to bring staff in, we need to build this club up because we're not ready to be there. They'd obviously seen what I'd done with the club as a volunteer. I've always been a fan who's been relatively positive online. I was never somebody that's bashing the club after defeats, and it was always I think you're a supporter, you're there to support. Yep. So I've always been in that mindset, even still now. So they say, listen, we want to bring one, would you be interested? So of course you come off the phone and you read the message and you go, of course it would be, like, to go and work for Livingston. My wife and I had we were looking to just buy our first house. We always rented and we're weighing things up, and I'm going, like, Livingston's been promoted, we'll be favourites to be relegated. Is it going to be a case of kind of last in, first out? No, I'm in a good job, I'm enjoying it, I'm in football, could go up in the business. I could do this, it'd be brilliant, work for Livingston, this is great. But what happens if we get relegated? I don't like change, quite a routine guy, I like what I like, and that's just keep it nice and easy. So I turned it down. I said, listen, I don't think it's for me just now. I think I would love to. No, my heart's saying go for it, do it, but my head was saying, this timing's just not quite right. So season starts and we beat Hearts 5-0 and we beat Rangers at home, and I'm going, like, we're going to stay up, and I've missed the boat here. I've blown it. So you kind of suck up and you go on with it and still enjoy being a fan. It was brilliant, still going along. And I think about a year and a half later, I was still close. I was still doing the club's social media, so I was still close with David Martindale. He gave me updates to put out for fans, whether it be ticket news or injuries or whatever it was. And it was Christmas Eve, or just before Christmas Eve 2019. He'd kind of text saying, listen, the guy that came in has moved on, and the opportunities came up again. And by this point, this was the second year in the Premiership. I'm going, right, okay, and looking at the league table, and we were looking fairly safe at that point. I'm going, right, okay, if I take it now, we're definitely in the Premiership for the rest of this year, and I'll have another year. So I was kind of working backwards, going, I've got 18 months if I go in here, minimum, to then go and try and make connections and build myself as a brand, if you like, and go, if we do get relegated in 18 months' time, and this is probably perhaps a negative way of looking at it for the business perspective, but for me,
it's a bit of risk management, really, though, isn't it? What's the worst that could happen here?
That's it. And my wife and I just got first mortgage, and I'm going, I can't be risking jumping about from job to job. Just had my son was just born, so I thought, right, okay, I've got 18 months, but I'm going to just go and work as hard as I can, make sure that whatever I do, if the club go down, that I've been a success and I've got contacts and I can then maybe speak to other clubs selfishly, but having to put me and my family first. So I went down and spoke to David. It was Christmas Eve 2019. Went down, boys had just finished training, went in, had a chat, and it was the easiest conversation ever, because not many people get the chance to go and work at their boyhood club once. Yeah. And I'd turned it down, and I had a second chance of going, I've got to do it this time. And I spoke to the guys at FN Teamwear and said, listen, this has came up again. And I told them, I was open with them the first time I got offered it, and said, listen, I've turned it down, it's not for me. And they were really, really pleased with that, and then they were delighted that I kind of stuck with them. But this time when I went in, I think the two of them were kind of like, no, like, you need to go this time. Like, we know how much the club means. I'm from Livingston. It was that travelling the train in and out every day. It was not trains are like delayed all the time, and you were getting home at 8 o'clock at night. And and they were brilliant. Like, go and do it. Like, you'll if you regret it already, if you don't take it this time, you're definitely regretting it. So said yep. In February 2020, that was it. We went and joined the club, and as my first role was business development manager, I think was the official
and
title.
Was that, see, in 2018, was that what they offered you? Was it like business development manager, like how can we build relations and stuff like that?
I think To be honest, I think, and I don't think they'll have any qualms with saying this, I don't think they really knew. I think it was a case of like,
Can you
if we
come
get,
in and just
it wasn't necessarily just me. It wasn't like this. Dave's going to be the hero, the save. It was just he's a Livingston fan. He's switched
he
on. Like
gets
he's in
he's
business in
connected
football
enough?
world.
Yeah.
If you like, I think it would have probably been a bit of a almost like a general manager, all encompassing. So community, commercial, just because there was nobody at the club at the time at that point. They were in the Championship. They just remember the club had went League One,
Yeah.
Championship back to back. So in League One, it was there was nobody really in the building. It was very, very shoestring, less than skeleton staff, if you like. And Davey at that point still was involved in everything.
You said there as well, like Davey was sending you the updates for the social media. I don't think a lot of people like people from Livingston who get the club will understand, but from any other like football fans or that would be listening to this, they would be probably thinking, what? Like the manager's message? And you would have been a volunteer doing the social media, I'm guessing, at that time. So.
Yeah, so there was a guy who done kind of Facebook updates at the time or Twitter updates, and he stepped away from doing it. And I don't think there was anybody, and I'd say, listen, send me over the logins. I'd go to all the games home and away, so I'm quite happy to sit on my phone. And I was just still paying in as a fan and just sitting in the stand, and I'd tweet updates, if you like. Remember, that was quite a big thing at that time when Twitter and so on kind of started getting bigger. That was, fans were going there to see their updates. It's kind of different now with streaming and so on. I don't think as many people are necessarily using social media for live updates, but at that point it was a big thing. So started doing it, really enjoyed it, and then kind of joined the kind of loosely speaking media team at the club. It was a guy, Alison McNeil, who's still there, who runs the website. Myself, was a photographer. There's been 2 or 3 photographers at that point. And that was it. You were just kind of all helping each other, saying, I'm doing these tweets, could you maybe send me a photo, and could you maybe do this on the website? But Dave at that point was on the coaching staff, so he would have been at that point assistant manager to Davy Hopkin.
Right.
I think so that was when the club had went League One, Championship and into the Prem. So I think Davey was involved, and he was keen to make sure, trying everything. Davey was trying to help with hospitality and do offers and season tickets, whatever it was. I think he was invested as a person and invested in the club and really wanted to do well. So he was using me, soundboarding me for stuff. I'd post it out, and that was it. So I'd kind of had that relationship. I knew Davey loosely. He played football with my brother-in-law, so we'd been at maybe weddings or functions or parties together, and we kind of knew who each other were, but maybe without not really knowing each other personally. So I think that kind of helped me. Davey knew, could maybe trust me through who he knew, if that makes sense. So, and that was it.
It's a big important thing, that as well, especially with such a tight knit team as well.
Of course it is, and that's probably one of the things that not slowed us down, but at times when it's been so tight knit and you trust who you bring in, and when you're trying to then grow the club and grow the business, if you like. And it's that like you're bringing an outsider in, and can you trust them? And probably it's made it not difficult for people to integrate, but they've had to kind of earn their place, and that's maybe not great. But at that point anyway, when it was such a tight knit, and everybody trusted each other, nothing got out that should or shouldn't get out. Sorry, and when you start bringing, it's like anything, you bring more and more people in, that risk is there that somebody in the building that's you can't trust, or somebody's going to go and tell somebody something, that whether it's news about an injured player, and then that gets to somebody else, and before you know it, it's on social media. So that was probably a hard thing for us as a club to navigate, is bringing people in and then trusting that they can be part. And people always talk that's the way it's going to be, and it was almost accepting that you can't control everything that gets out of the building, and just having to deal with that as the club grew. So yeah, that was it. So that was how I kind of got.
So you came in. So that was February 2020.
February 2020.
Yeah, and then
2 months later, the world shut down. Jamie, that was the most. I remember being gutted. Obviously, what was going on in the world, and we didn't quite grasp how big it was going to be. Obviously, when it first came, and this kind of flu in China, and I don't really understand it. It'll be fine. Like, and how many news stories do you see? And
I know everybody was like, "All right, it's not going to amount too much."
Starts hearing a bit more, and I think there was it something in Italy? I think there was a Six Nations match in Italy cancelled the game because there was somebody had tested positive, and then it was Cheltenham races, I think, was the big one. Cheltenham was about that time, and there was a big question mark whether it went ahead, and I think they then said it became one of the kind of super spreaders, if you like. They went with Cheltenham, and before you knew it, that was it. And then you started getting a wee bit more correspondence with the SPFL and the SFA saying, okay, we're keeping an eye on this, nothing at the minute. And I remember it vividly. We were due to play live on Sky on a Sunday against Hearts, and it was Old Firm the same weekend as well. It was a kind of double header. I think there was a game at 12 and a game at 2, or however it was going to be. And the week was progressing. I remember almost thinking, I think the English Premier League had said that was it. English football was shutting down for this weekend to see what was happening. but we hadn't made the decision as a league. I remember thinking, I think what they're going to do here is try and get through this weekend because it was Old Firm and almost try and capitalise on no English football, get this Celtic Rangers game on. We were going to benefit for that because we had this live Sky game, a big game, because at that point it was the season Hearts were bottom of the league and we were fighting for top six and we were a home game against Hearts. At that point, probably favourites to win, or people would be going, okay, I think Livingston should pick up points, or if not lose the game, which would have helped us in the hunt for top six and potential Europe. So that was great, and I think, okay, we'll get there. And remember the Friday afternoon, we get the email through saying that's it, like we're calling everyone off. And it's that complete uncertainty for everybody across the world, of course. But okay, so what's happening then? Well, we're just shutting football down until future notice, until you hear any more for us. You're going, well, okay, we were due to have 6,000-7,000 people in the stadium on Sunday, so that was X amount of thousands of pounds coming in. That's now not happening. What are we doing here? So it became like a bit of a panic, like what happened? So as time went on, obviously the furlough scheme came in and various other initiatives, and football did shut down. And that was, I remember going in Chappin Davies' door. At that point, again, just not many people in the building. And before he even said anything, he said, "You're nervous here, aren't you?" And I said, "Of course I am. Like, I've been brought in to go and try and grow the commercial, and we don't have anything to grow. There's no games. There's no what am I selling? Like, you've brought me in to do this, and I'm probably now the unsafest guy in the building because there is no football, there's no hospitality, there's no commercial. Nobody wants to buy advertising when there's nobody here. Like, what am I doing?" He's like, no. And in fairness to him, I remember him saying, "You've now just became the most important person in this building because it's now on your head, if you like, to go and bring money in somehow, because no one knows how to bring money in." And that was the thing. There was no book. There was no one had been through a global pandemic, if you like. So no one knew what do you do here. And it was actually quite nice. I was new to it, obviously, anyway. But all of a sudden, you had all these football clubs working together. I remember speaking to the guys at Hibs saying, "Listen, I'm new to this anyway, but what are you doing now?" So that was when you had things like we started selling virtual sponsorship. So because football then, the Scottish football started playing again, but behind closed doors. So we still had games going on, but we're like, okay, so what do we do? How do we maximise this? Not just for a money perspective, how do we make fans still, because everybody's in their house, how do we make fans still close to the club? How do we make them still feel connected? So we started doing, and then from the commercial aspect, we still had players to pay, we still had bills, we were an industry that was allowed to continue, which still meant you had overheads, but we had no money coming in, so you had no fans, you had no ticket money, you had little sponsorship because people going, well, there's no eyes in the stadium, nobody's seen my board, or nobody's, but we were told that football was starting. So as much as it was great for people at home going, oh, brilliant, I can watch the games, and I think was it Germany was the first game that kicked back, and there was a game, I think it was the most viewed game almost ever, because everybody was like, this German game on that nobody would ever have cared about outside of Germany, but everybody was watching it because it was football was back. And we were like, okay, so how do we go and do this? And no, we got through it, and every club, we started working together. So say we're selling like virtual mascot packages, so that we're getting players to send videos to kids, and so you were still on the stream, you would pop up, the kids' photo was there, and we were sending videos for the players. And same with the commercial interactive sort of match sponsorship and match ball, so you were still doing it, you were getting advertising during the game on the stream. Everybody had to watch the stream, that was the thing. So whereas now people are at the games, you've got a stream, but there's people are there, whereas nobody was there.
So some elements of it would have been better in a sense, because you're like, look, they'll definitely be watching.
That's it, 100%. So you were, and it was actually there. So you take an advertising board as a, for instance, people see it sometimes, or people know where it is, or they'll maybe look at it. All of a sudden you had a chance to go, half time, your logo was going to be on the screen for everybody, or during the game it was in the corner, or whatever it was. So it gave us new opportunities, but there was no guide how to do it.
Were you sort of regretting the move a wee bit at that point?
So I think initially I was worried about it,
because that was only a matter of months, really.
I remember
it couldn't have really actually went any worse. Obviously, coming through it all, like, you're probably like, that's probably the best thing that ever happened to you. But
it was, you were talking about being thrown at the deep end. That's something,
especially when you were saying like you don't really like change, you like your routine, you turned it down already once, and then it probably took a lot for you to go, I'm going to go for it because the chance might not come up again, for it to then get that sort of...
That was, say, February, and then I think it was April, I think everything shut down. But there was loads of elements of that I think made it a wee bit harder. Not so much poor me, but you lose that bond, if you like. So all of a sudden everybody's furloughed, or no one's in the building, but
It's
I was still
lonely.
in, or I was working from home, and you don't get to then meet people. You don't get so I've started a new job, but everybody else knows each other, and I'm the new guy that nobody really gets to meet.
Yep.
And saying that, I knew a lot of people in the building through being a fan and being involved
Yeah.
in different things. So I knew most of the people, but the players I didn't really know. The players to me, I went for a fan who was kind of excited by seeing the players. Now I was like, oh, I'm going to go in and sit and have lunch, and this is going to be all these players. That took a while to kind of
Yeah.
get over that. And as daft as that sounds, a grown man, I remember going in for lunch for the first time, and all the players were sitting in. The Saturday before I'd started there, I was at the game watching them, kind of cheering them on and going, "Oh, these are brilliant! These are my heroes."
Yeah.
And then sitting going, "Oh, like I've got to now take myself out of that and be in the business, if you like, be alongside
What's the
them."
dynamic of that? Because obviously, like, so what's the relationship between you and the players in that scenario? Because obviously, like, so like Dave's the manager, but like, are you kind of like on a par with him, or are you just another branch, or like how does that actually work?
I think at Livingston, I can't speak for every club, but at Livingston, I think, again, we've spoke about how kind of close knit and how tight it is because you've got a few people in the building. So you probably are closer, or I was able at that point. Bear in mind, I was doing the media or the social media and stuff, so I kind of had to have a relationship with the players because you're going to them saying, like, I need you to do this video, I need you to go and do this press conference, I need you to go and go to this school. So I think if you don't have that relationship, you become a pain in the arse for them. I feel like you're going in and saying, I need, as soon as they see you, they're going, oh, he's going to ask me to do something here. And I get it. Players want to go to their work, train, get a shower and go home and see their family. Didn't want to have me saying, I need you to go and speak to the press, do the newspapers, go to a school. I don't mean that perhaps as pessimistically or negatively, but for them, it's like yourself and you've got your work to do and you want to go and do your work and get home to your family. Or
Then there's the over and above stuff,
well, that's
really,
it. That's it.
and that's what keeps it all going as well. So it's you probably had the hardest job in the building, like Dave said as well. It's like Dave said, it's the most important. Like, you'll need to go out and make this work somehow.
That was it, and it was hard for me to then get those relationships with people like yourself initially because I'm going, look, do you want to buy a board? No, of course I don't. Or people not even working. So you're trying to contact businesses who are completely shut down, or businesses that probably then went under at that point because they couldn't get through that pandemic time. So it was hard. It was really hard. But then, as I say, it gave us a chance to do other things and try and push other opportunities and look at it differently. And as I say, it maybe helped me a little bit because firstly, I wasn't taking anybody's job, if you like. So it wasn't somebody going, "This is how I done it, Dave," in a pandemic. It was like no one had done it. So it was
Yeah.
okay, what I can get this right and wrong, but there's nobody to kind of bounce off because nobody knows. So there was kind of WhatsApp chats and email groups between clubs. We were trying to, some clubs more than others, which is just natural for anything. But remember Hibs and asking me about our mascot package, what you doing, how you doing that, and going, oh, this is mental. I've just kind of not. Listen, I wasn't the first to do it, but here's a club that the guys that have probably done the job for years asking me how I'm doing it. I've been in the door 2 minutes with no real idea what I'm doing, but it was great. And likewise, I was asking them and try to work together to go, okay, if we give you some of this, will you help me with that? And it was good. It's probably a rarity for football where
Yeah.
clubs are working together because by and large, other clubs are your competitors.
I think
your
if I
rivals.
remember back to the COVID time as well, it was quite collaborative. There was quite a lot of people, like probably LinkedIn being the main one, just businesses sort of, jumping
Yeah.
on and helping each other. Or we're doing this, we're doing that. Did you know that this is available or that's
Yeah.
available? And here's some, like, a lot of the HR companies and stuff as well were probably like trying to dilute, or maybe no dilute, but like pull this messy information that's
Yeah.
coming from the government and get it into simple, like, layman terms for business owners and maybe even trades business owners as well, who are going, oh, we're no used to maybe all this sort of stuff, to actually take that information on. It was quite collaborative, if I remember.
It was, and football probably wasn't any different. You still had that rivalry because we were still then, let's say, we were back playing, so the league was still going. You were still having to try and win games and get up the table. But then it was things like, showering facilities or changing rooms. So you couldn't have so many players. You had the 2 metre social distancing thing. So we had to use the home and away changing room for our players. So we're having to create spaces in old gym areas and old like rooms that hadn't been used for years at the club and put some seats in and go, okay, Rangers are coming, but there's an empty, the old Livy nightclub, if you like, with just an empty derelict space. Put some chairs in, and that's where Rangers had to go in and sit and get changed. And I'm going, I remember being in there when I was 17, 18.
It's quite surreal.
Now there's James Tavernier, whoever it is sitting getting ready to play Livingston. It was, we were fortunate. Derek White, who was our kind of club secretary and became our COVID officer at the time, it was brilliant. We took it on and handled that kind of aspect of it. I mean, everybody at the club had to muck in, and there was so much being done, whether it be even just for signage and posters and telling the players what they could and couldn't do, and they couldn't shower, so they were coming in training, having to drive back home in their training gear and can you wash all that selling, come back in, and it was difficult. It was just, it became, I hate the phrase, but it became the new normal at that time. You just, after a few months, you got used to it. But it was always that thing when you got a positive test, and it was like, oh, well, does this mean where's he been? We're using buses to games, but you're having to have 3 or 4 buses because you'd have one player for every 8 seats, and it became, so he's tested positive, who was he near, and that player then had to self isolate, and had a game on Saturday. We had 4 players out because somebody had tested positive, and
logistical nightmare,
and financially expensive because we were having to test all the time. So as much as we're allowed to play, as I'm saying, we didn't have money coming in. We also spend a lot of money on testing. We went and bought our own testing equipment that we'd done in house. Everybody else was sending tests away. The board at the time, John Ward, had kind of led it, and he had contacts, and we went and bought our own testing machine. And credit to him, Andy McKenzie, our club physio, he was doing overnighters at the club, so you were testing. I can't remember now how long it took per test, but he was getting swabs for all the players, and I think we're putting 2 per test tube and putting in the machine. If it came back positive, we knew it was one of those 2, just to try and save costs, rather than 1 per person.
Yeah.
So because you were getting 2 in, if it came back clear, you knew the 2 of them were clear. Whereas if, just to try and speed up, he was not sleeping during the night at the club, just to try and speed the process up, to make sure that on a Saturday we had everybody available, or catch it as quick as we could. Other teams were sending it away, they'd get a positive, they were then having to wait for the feedback and then tell the player isolate, by which point it was 3 days later and everybody's testing positive. And you've seen how disruptive it was. Even the bigger clubs had much bigger facilities and finance than us were. Celtic were really, they went away, and I think they lost nearly their whole team for a game. I think it was against us, actually. We played Celtic, and they had 11, 12 players all out because they tested positive. And it was when you look back now, it was an utterly mental situation.
A good way to sort of get in and learn it, I guess, though, because you're like, I don't know what to say, it would have been easy the other side, but surely when it went back to normal and you went, oh, that's actually how it's meant to work,
it would have been easier. It would have been easier. No, of course it would have, if that hadn't happened, and you'd have just went in and got to know people and cracked on as usual. But it maybe did.
So you're at a bit of a disadvantage, really.
I think so. I think looking back now, I try and take it that maybe it did help me, that I was new to all, but everybody was new to it. So there was, I couldn't really go too wrong because no one knew what they were doing. And then, but I think where it did hamper is when things got back to normal. I wasn't used to normal. I'd never been there when things were normal. So I remember the first game with a crowd, and all the staff that had been there before saying, like, we need to do this, need to do that. I'm going, what do you mean? And like, try to get back, like, oh, I've never done this. And you thought you knew what you were doing. And all of a sudden you had crowds back in, and I had no idea what was happening because I'd never actually had a game with a crowd working there. So people were saying to me, like, why you not done that? Like, what do you mean? And like, almost having to learn it again, going, right, okay, this is what it used to be like. And looking back now, yeah, it was difficult, but yeah, maybe it did help me at the time because it was, no one knew, no one could really score my card, if you like, because it was like, well, I don't know, maybe Dave's doing brilliant and maybe he's not. But everybody was just trying to do their own bit. Davey was mucking in, say Derek was there, all the stuff.
I think it's always just comes down to like the almost like a core value type thing, where it's like you would have been hard working, you're in there, you're committed, you were willing to learn, you're like, that stuff I think always carries people through. Like you weren't new to the job, but I think that sometimes is, and that trust element that you spoke about, like Davey being able to use you as a soundboard and stuff like that, and then you're seeing your peers as well asking you, oh, what are you doing with that sponsorship? How are you making that work? That starts to build a bit of confidence as well. But I think it's the same throughout trades and business as well. It's like attitude first and then skill second. I think a lot of it. And like how could you possibly walk into a job like that probably at the time Livingston didn't even really know what the job kind of was going to be, and then even more so, but like when COVID hit. So
I said this, I've never been.
Everybody's learning on the job, really.
Well, I agree with that 100% because I've never kind of hid away from the fact that if Livingston had, this is again no without any disrespect to the people in the building at the time, if Livingston had a proper recruitment team or a recruitment person or a recruitment company working for them, I'm not getting the job that I'd got. No, I wouldn't have been the person that brought in. They'd have been going to somebody who'd been at the university, someone who'd been in marketing. So my job was to go and try and sell commercials. So I had no experience in that. I'd been selling football kit for 5-6 years, and before that I was selling door entry panels. Like I was not the guy that was going to score. No, so no recruitment company was chapping my door to take that job at Livingston. But I think what Davey and John Ward at the time knew was that no one would work any harder than me. No one would have any more passion for the club than me. So, okay, what I lacked in experience and maybe had to learn on the job, I was probably then more infectious talking to people, saying like they could buy into me. And you know, it's like people buy from people, if you like, definitely. Sometimes. And I think if that element I was never going to get beaten on, okay, you could have brought a uni graduate out who was going, yeah, I can do this, I can do that much better. And probably that's still the case, probably. But now that lived experience.
I think because like you genuinely like love the club,
Yeah.
then that just shines through. So, do you know, I think it's easy to get on board with a club like that when someone's saying, "Do you want to take some sponsorship? Do you want to do this?" I think it's easier when you're like you sort of know that it means something rather than just somebody being like, you know, you can get somebody kind of at you for sponsorship or whatever, but like they're kind of ticking a box.
Yeah. And I think you see that further down the leagues you go, because it is more community orientated. So
Mhm.
some of the clubs, League Two, Lowland League, dare I say, where it's, you know, people know how much it means. They are, it's village teams, it's community
Yeah.
teams, community clubs. So they're trying to sell a board because they know how much that £500 or that £1,000 will make a difference in the bank, and that'll allow them to go and buy it. It's literal hand to mouth, if you like. So, and it's people who are looking at, I think you take a board at Bonnie Grows.
Yeah.
So I think as an example, you
Mhm.
probably see how that impact of that
Mhm.
board helps them and the people selling the board. It's not
Yeah.
not doing it because they'll maybe get a cut, or because they want to build up their CV. They're doing it because they know how much that'll help the club
I
selling
think
that
I
board.
think a lot of that as well. What I've noticed is it can be quite good. Like as our business has grown, so we like help quite a few of the junior clubs out, and like what I've noticed is it can be quite good for them to say, oh, like Taylor Roos took a board or another business. I'm not just saying us, but like another one, like, oh, they've took one. And I
Definitely.
think that can be quite good. Like my mate Mark Glasgow, who's got the Edinburgh Boiler Company, like his board's kind of next to ours. And then you see that and then you go, like, I don't know if that just has like a bit of a domino knock-on effect where people go, well, they've all got like advertising boards there, so it must do something. Because I think the big problem with like advertising boards and things like that, there's a big element where as a business you always want to, like, it is a giving back thing. You're like, right, what helps support the club? But there's an element of you probably want to get a business as well from it somehow. So it's then kind of like it's hard to tie that together and go, how will we know if that gets us a return? But then, so I think like the more people who actually do it and then just sort of do the give back, then it's almost. I think it can just be a knock on effect. So I don't even know what I'm trying to say, to be
No,
honest. But just like,
I know what
do you
you're,
know,
I get that. Yeah,
it's like, oh, they've got one there, so that'll be quite thing. And even that post I put out the other day with the Bonnie Rig Rose one, and I think a lot of it is like you can't just stick. Like we've probably done quite a bit of business through Livingston just in terms of like the direct ones where somebody's like, oh, I've been a Livy fan all my life. I sit in the stand and I see your
yeah,
sponsorship in the dugout, and when it came time to get my roof done, we were definitely going to use you guys because we
yeah,
see
yeah.
you're supporting the club. So like that's a direct one where you go, they've paid X amount for the roof, and there's been a couple of ones like that. So you're like, oh, that covered the cost of that at that period of time. But there's other elements where you can't quantify it. But what I've found is if you just put a board there and then just go, right, I'll get loads of business, it doesn't really work like that. It's more to do with, you know, building a relationship with yourself, trying to get along to the games, doing a bit of hospitality, then who you're speaking to in there. Like if you've got a board in the building and you never ever go to say hospital, I'm actually selling this for you now, but if you've got a board in the building and you never ever go to hospitality, then you're almost like one of them sponsors that's like, well, they have got a board, but they're not really involved with the club. I think the actual, like anything, you'll know for being a business development manager in the past, it's like, it's just on relationship.
Yeah.
Like, so we'll maybe do work for, say, like Heaney's Electrical as an example, or there'll be other ones that sponsors at Livingston. That comes from being in there. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's not to say that I wouldn't have had a relationship with Mark Heaney if it wasn't for Livingston, but the couple of times like that I've maybe went and then he's been in the boardroom as well, and on the same time, or hospitality, and then you just build them bonds, and then it just becomes a natural, like, you kind of
Yeah.
do business together both ways. So it's I think basically what I'm trying to say is, like, if somebody's thinking, right, I'll put a board there, or I'll sponsor the dugout, whatever it is, and you think that's it, it's no really. It's like you've still got to have a presence, you've still got to have a relationship, because we have seen it where, like, we've sponsored certain clubs and then just never ever got there. One of them's to be fair, it's Curry Chieftains and it's rugby, and it's like we've sponsored down there, but like I never get down to the rugby games because I'm
Yeah.
always either at Livy or I'm with Muriston or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like, so like when we look at that and I'm like, oh, maybe we're not getting a return there, and it's like, but how would they, like, it's not just because they see your sign they're going to trust you with their whole roof getting replaced now. It's, you've got to be a presence, you've got to be there. Anyway, I'm kind of waffling
No,
on that one, but
it makes sense. The amount of times where I'll maybe get an email or a phone call or from another business saying, "Oh, I've seen so-and-so's board, so I've seen Taylor Roof's board, I've seen Curtin Florin's board, I've seen John Heaney's board," and that's what's prompted them just to get in touch. So slightly different, but the amount of contacts we've made through other businesses where a company's just seen, not even a competitor, just someone they know. So that works for us. The other thing, like you say, yeah, it's how much that business then wants to run with that as well. So you can take a board and it'll go up at the start of the season and it'll be there for the year, and you might, that's fine, that might be enough for you. You're just quite happy with that exposure. You're quite happy maybe seeing it on the highlights, and that's maybe what you're looking for. That's fine. But I think the more you run with that and the more you push that, you get those relationships that, forget Livingston, that might be Taylor Roofs and John Heaney Electrical, because you've seen his board, like you say, you've then crossed paths, might have known each other anyway, but you've then bumped into each other again. And I know that, like, even the internal side of that, so a lot of fans, like you say, maybe somebody using you because they've seen your board, a Livingston fan. I know there's been staff at the club who've been in touch and had work done because of that. You've then got a lot of fans will now use the home of the set fair for taxis because they see the branding and it. You kind of, I know what I was like as a fan. You would do that. You would see your club doing something, so you would use that company
because you can see where the money's actually going as well, or a percentage of it.
Correct. So they're putting money at the club. You're putting money to them. They might then stay at the club longer because they're getting that return on investment. So that works. But then there's also the internal side. So Natasha at home of the set fairs now struck up a really good relationship with Alistair Stables at Pumfreston Auto Centre. I mean, it's almost like match made in heaven. Company that relies on cars, company that fixes cars. So like they've now started working together. A lot of the players now use Alistair for MOTs or tyres, just because he comes to the games, he's in hospitality a lot, he's got his boards, and it's all that kind of interlinked. We used, I contacted Mark a couple of weeks ago, he's made some electrical work done, so he came down, and it's almost, we need this done, who we phone off, we've got that sponsor, we'll use them, and it's, you just that's all the kick on that you get with that, be internal, so business to business, not to do with Livingston, but they've met through the company. I remember the biggest one that was slightly different. Phoenix Drilling were our front of shirt sponsor for a number of years. Stephen Glover was a huge supporter of the club. Done a lot of sponsorship, a lot of, and gave a lot of time. Though, came to every game, and he took a corporate box on. He had guests there every week, and he paid for all his guests to get there, for them to get home. He filled them with drink and come to the games. It was just he bought into it, invested in it, and put a lot of money into the club over the period he was there. I remember him sort of saying to me that no fan in the stand, Phoenix Drilling are like geotechnical drillers. No fan in the stands ever going, I need to phone Phoenix Drilling. I need some geotechnical drilling done. He's not, and he knew that. Like, he was putting in close to, if not 6 figures a year into the club through sponsorship in his box, and wasn't going to get any of that back through fans. Like, it's not a business that the taxi firm will. Fans will need taxis, fans will need roofs, fans will need electrical work done. So you get all those kind of curtain flooring, the floors done. No one needs that service. But what he was doing it for, almost slightly different. It was one that matched the experience. So he had these box, and he'd bring clients along, potential clients, suppliers, whatever it was, staff, like almost using it to win other business, not through Livingston.
It builds community, and
that's it.
That
he's
sense.
Going, listen, I've got 4 seats in my box, you want to come along, bringing someone who's maybe between Phoenix Drilling and another drilling company. That was them sold, they got that win. And he was saying his website traffic, when we played Celtic or Rangers or a Sky game, you could, if he took the yearly analytics from his website traffic and just went, show me the 3 days where Livingston played on TV, it was, there it is, and there it is. You could see just people probably going, who are they? What are they? What is it they do? Like, I see it on the shirt, I see it in the stadium, I'm seeing it all over the place. And he would get that, and then that was up to him to then capitalise on who was on my website, where were they clicking, and you go and get that business. So whilst he wasn't getting that direct return on investment for fans, he was certainly seeing it through bringing clients and customers. So
it's almost like anything you go into, though. Like, you get out what you put in.
Course,
so it's like these people that go to networking events, and they'll maybe go along and they'll be like, "There's my business card. Use me for getting your roof done or whatever." And then on to the next person. It's like, if you didn't build any relationships, then you're never really going to get anything from it. I think if you approach it in a community sort of give back sense, I think it is easier. And I think for us, the way that we've done it with Taylor Roos was that's like almost like famous for us, the wee story now, isn't it? But it's like you'd been at me a couple of times saying, like, do you want to take a board? And I was like, I'm not too sure. And then you did the raffle, so we took a ticket for the raffle. We won it. We got the pitch side board, and then we just kind of grew year on year for there because the relationship was built. But I think what we've done pretty well, and people could probably buy into this a wee bit and take it on board, is like, so when we went on like TV as well, it was like same thing like what you're saying, like when Rangers or Celtic come, it's sort of a big weekend that's getting viewed. But I remember when our TV ad came out and it was on during Livingston v Rangers match. That was when we were on Sky, so it was like the Sky Ad Smart that we were using. So that was basically getting channeled into like all the Sky Q boxes, and the amount of people that were like, oh, like I seen you like during the like Livi Rangers game, but then also like when that's on, you're like seeing us, you're seeing it in the dugout, you're seeing it on the so it's like so you're actually on TV, but then you're in the stadium as well. It was like it was quite a. I think sometimes again it just comes back to, didn't just stick a board at the side of the pitch and think that's going to do much, but get up there, get your photo taken with it, and share it, and then if you're putting a TV campaign around it, it's like people can join all these dots. I used to do this sort of exercise in my head where I was like, if I'm going from like my house in Bathgate to Livingston, how many times could I like see Taylor roofs, do you know? And then it's like you'll see our vans, you'll see our scaffold banners, you'll see us like we've got signage on roundabouts, and then so there's like these wee bits. But then it gets to the weekend and it's like if they go to the Livy game, then they see that bit. If they're watching it, like that example with Livingston v Rangers, they've seen us on the ad, they've actually seen us there, and there's like this it's almost like statistic where it's like you need to see a brand 7 or 8 times before you really trust it. But so I was thinking like, that's what my marketing's been around. Like, how could we shorten that time frame? Because if you think if the only thing you did was you had the sponsorship board there, then it'd take probably a wee bit of time, unless it's a diehard Livy fan that's going every week. They'll see that 7 times over the how, like, you know, the 7 games that they go. But if you've got vans here, you've got that there, it's like I think it all kind of plays into a bigger picture, and that's just part of it. It's always kind of been part of it for us. But I was saying to you like off air before, but it's like my boys, they're Livy fans now. Like they love it, and they had the opportunity to really. I was like, look, you just support who you want to support. Harry's been doing to like see Man City winning the league down there. That was a whole Jack Grealish thing, because he loved Jack Grealish, and he had like an Aston Villa top, and then when he moved to City, he kind of, I don't know if that was a kind of influencer type thing. Then he was quite into Man City, but obviously, like I was always been Rangers, and I was kind of brought up that way to support them. But then, do you know, we just go to the Livy games now because it's like we know yourself, we know how much it means to the club. You just like all of that for really, you're probably picking the phone up and going, "You want to take a board? Do you want to take a board?
Please take a board."
And then I'm like, right, I better take one now. This is like his 5th call. But no, but it's like I think what's good about it as well is like it's probably loads of wee lessons like in there, but it's just the fact that it's like that's how things can evolve so much. So like when you look at, you know, like how connected like that'll go on for like my boys will go on and they'll be supporting the club forever more now, and then it's like that generational thing you spoke about. It's like, right, well their kids be the same, and then and like that, like all of that, just for really somebody going, I love the club, I want more people to love my club. So hats off to you, to be fair, mate.
The generational, we spoke about this earlier, but that generational thing is difficult, but it's rewarding for that side as well. Like you said, it's slightly a different story with your kids, but certainly with mine, I was that 5-6-year-old boy when Livingston moved here. I'm saying this earlier on now, both my kids go to the games, but that's 30 years for me to get 2 fans.
Aye.
So, but then all my mates now, I have to say, they played in the supporters team, so they've all got kids similar ages, so they're all starting to come. Don't get me wrong, it's hard because some of them go to school and it's not sexy to support Livingston. You know, it's easy to support Celtic, and maybe not just now, easy to support Celtic and Rangers, but in times gone by, it's that's the big team. So you're going to school and you've got all your wee pals. And I remember it, I was the Livy fan, like at school. Like everybody was Rangers and Celtic, Hearts and Hibs. I remember when we won the CIS Cup in 2004, going into school, I remember going in on the Monday morning with a Livy scarf on, and somebody said, "Oh, you never normally wear your scarf." And be like, "No, please don't try to accuse me of being a glory hunter here." I'm like, we never went in, and like, just go, give me my day, like but that kind of going in. And I was, even right now, I'll get texts. When we won the playoffs last year, I was getting texts from people I've not heard for years, and it's almost because it's like, I'm the Livy fan, they know. So it's like, oh, you're well done, you'll be delighted. And that's not because, no, I wouldn't, if Celtic win the league this year, I'll not text every Celtic fan I know, but it's almost because it's like, oh, Dave's a Livy fan, like there's Livy doing well. It's funny how that kind of small club I feel like you become that one. Like,
Yeah.
and you probably know it if you know somebody that maybe supports Motherwell or St John's, it might be the only one you know. So if they do well, you're probably
Yeah, you keep a
well,
wee
well
eye on
done.
it.
Like
No,
it's
there is an element to that. What's the sort of, where do we go for there then? So you came in and it was like the business development management manager role, and then you went on and took the higher up roles. Like, how did that kind of come about? And then maybe just kind of go for there and get us up to like the new ownership perhaps, and where we're at in current times, sort of thing.
so again, like a club like Livingston, you're wearing many hats all at the same time. So whilst I had that, everybody's got, even now to an extent, everybody's got job titles, but what their role is probably
Yeah.
different, and that's probably not too different for a lot of kind of small businesses where. Like even you yourself had a stage where you had a job title, but what you were doing is probably not what the owner of a business or a managing director should be doing. It should be somebody should do, and I don't mean that somebody else should be doing it, but it should be
Yeah.
not just to delegate it, but it should be people in their own kind of silos doing their bit. But um, so I say Derek, who was there, he moved on to Hibs. He was our at the time COVID officer, club secretary, was doing our media, and it was something I was always interested in. I'd obviously done the social media and quite like that side, so I took over as head of media at the club as well. So I was still kind of commercial manager, stroke business development manager, and I was now then the head of media. So I was
Mm.
then dealing with
Two jobs, but no two salaries. I bet.
no, aye, if only. But that was like weekly press conferences in the lead up to games. It was on a match day, dealing with the press, dealing with pre-match and post-match stuff. So again, taking the manager before the game, after the game, getting players for A to B. Again, when Sky were in, so it was the whole. It's not just Sky will turn up on a Sunday and they put cameras in Sky there for a Thursday, and there's scaffolding and there's safety regulations and there's compounds and there's security, and it's again for a club like us, it's a big operation for us to run. I'd put something another week after we played Rangers, and I said this to you earlier on, the 90 minutes on a Saturday or a Sunday, whenever it is the easiest part of my job, because it's the part where I don't have any influence on what's happening. I just sit and watch it. Stressful watching the game, of course, but it's the easiest part in terms of just breathe, like going, hopefully they win. But then, and as soon as the game finishes, like, right, where do we go? And we've got back into the boardroom, there's hospitality, there's this. And at that point, it was the same. Everybody in the building's got their own jobs to do, and it's that 90 minutes. Okay, there's other people who are still working during that 90 minutes, but the chef's still got half-time food to prep, and some of the office staff are helping with that. And there's people still busy then, but
You're technically working as well, really. It's probably a difficult balance. Like there must be times where you just sort of wish I was just a fan right now and just enjoy this game and then go up the road.
Listen, for me, it's that whole thing where I've been really privileged to get behind the scenes at the club and get experiences. Both me and my family at games. Not you take the Ross County playoff game there to get back up. You know, we went up the day of the game. That was probably one of my best ever memories, that game, because to have coming through the really hard to take season of relegation. That was my first year as chief executive, and we got relegated, and I'd be lying, or you take a lot of that personally. Like, what was that my fault? Was it because I was too inexperienced? Was I the wrong person to lead the club? If someone else had done that, would they have maybe just had that extra wee bit to keep us up, or could they have brought more money in, which would have allowed the manager to sign better players? Or and you go through it all, and it's because it became a point in the season where we were saying all the right things, like we're still in this fight, but there was a part of you inside going, this is getting harder. With every defeat, you're getting further and further away. And when when the axe came down, I feel like at Motherwell, the day we were relegated, I remember, and I've never shied away from it. I remember sitting, and I'd stood in the director's box at Motherwell. Whenever they went inside, I remember sitting and like breaking my heart in the stand, going like, oh, like I've let this club down. This is me. And then also telling you and trying to counter that, going, well, actually no, I can't put the ball in the goals. I can't stop the ball going another end. But that was almost trying to help yourself feel better. And other people would tell you that, no, how's it your fault? Like you're one the one out there playing. I'm like, I know, but had I brought more money in, had I been able to do this, had we been able to make the club in a better place, could it have? And that was no, it was difficult, especially again in a small club where there's not many people to bounce things off, and you're there's no sounding board at times. You're going, right, I want to do this, and it's just up to me whether I do it or not. And you're gambling a lot of the time, going, I don't know if this is the best thing, but I think it is, and I'm not stupid, I'm not naive. So you're making you're assessing it, going, okay, I think this will work. And so you took a lot of that on board, and to flip that, I say that the following year, that 12 months later, standing at Dingwall. Again in the stand, breaking my heart, but for the like emotional,
the right reasons,
it was almost like that whole year of kind of like retribution a little bit, and like how hard it had been the year before. And don't be wrong, it was just as hard last year, because I said this again, that the pressure was just as much as different. It was the pressure of trying not to get relegated was now the pressure of we have to go up here because we'd not loosely speaking, we'd probably put all our eggs in the basket of last year. You know, like we budgeted every penny in the bank. We knew what was coming in over the year. You know, and had we not been promoted, it would have been not disaster. Don't want to say disastrous, but it would have been the Livingston
Well, it's
last
fine
year.
margins. That's the
It is,
reality.
but the
Like
Livingston
there's
last year,
clubs gone to almost to the wire or
yeah,
to the wire all the
yeah.
time.
But
It's
we had
such a volatile
but
industry.
and we were fortunate having been relegated. We had a squad of players that had been in the Premiership. Some had moved on, but you still had a core of a Premiership squad there. And we made the decision in the summer. Davey and myself and John Ward sat down and we said, okay, the budget is going to be based on every penny coming in and every penny we have. And it might be the case that on the last day in May we'll have no money in the bank, but we have one chance because there's a parachute payments when you get relegated. There's a money to try and help the business because it's hard if you're going for a Premiership club with Premiership crowds to then that's about 10% is what you take in prize money going down the way. So that's hard to just maintain the business. So you get a parachute payment for the relegated team to try and help maintain that business. We're going, that's not there the second year if you don't get up. We made that call and it was did I say risky? It was
Brave,
risk and reward.
courageous, really.
And yeah, we knew fine well had we not been promoted that the club was going to be entirely different. It wouldn't have been a club competing for the league next year. It would have been a club trying to stay in the Championship.
Who's that driven by mostly? Because like I see Davey and Davey's like a real natural winner because he's very external with that. But are you the same and is John like that? Like you's like, no, we need to win. Like because I know it's difficult. Whereas because you've seen the total flip side, like where the sort of being in the Premier League is very much like let's stay up, and there was like so much success in like the top half finishes. But when that comes to then, like it's maybe more difficult to be a winner in the Premier League, obviously, because it's so hard to pick points up. But like it feels as though like you've got that opportunity to be like, no, like we are winners. Like I knew you got a chance to actually showcase that on the park because the style of play and everything changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Because
I think again it's that whole in the Premiership we were in that last season. David said this himself, so I'm not putting words in his mouth or digging him out, but we spent a lot of the Premiership trying not to lose. Whereas coming down, it was like, no, we're now the team that has to win. So we there was probably Davey spent a lot less time watching opposition and a lot more time on how do we win. Not so you were looking for perhaps opposition weakness, whereas before we were looking at opposition strengths.
Yeah.
Which probably don't think about it as non-football people or people who just turn up and watch the games. But we spent most of the Premiership time like, where are they good because we need to stop them, to then where are they poor because we need to beat them there. Yeah. And that was that flip. I think
you noticed that.
Yeah, of course.
It must have been a breath of fresh air, actually. I know it was risky, the move you took to go, look, we're just going to go for this, and the budget was so tight, but it paid off.
Well, you had a squad of, say, Premiership players, and then we recruited, David brought players in to kind of speed up a bit, but Robbie Muirhead, who'd been in the Championship, he'd scored 17 goals the year before in the Championship. You're going, okay, there's a guy who knows the Championship. So doesn't forget Premiership players or up-and-coming players. There's a guy who's been there and done it. So we went and brought him in and ended up being probably our talisman last year, if you like. And then you complemented with guys that came down. Stephen Kelly, Scott Pittman's, the guys that came with us. And you still had addition guys like Ryan McGowan, Danny Wilson, like guys who'd been top-end. Ryan's played at World Cups. Who came in and
proper professionals, really.
That was it. And he had a tough year as well at St Johnstone and came to us and club captain and played every single game last season in that. So it was having to get the recruitment right to make sure you were topping up what you had. But yeah, we had an emphasis on that David wanted to play and wanted to get the ball down and use guys to say like Stephen Kelly, who's a creative player, wants to go and win games, and he'd probably been stifled a little bit in the Premiership by trying to not lose games and having to track back and make tackles when he wanted to go and try and score goals. We just couldn't get up the park at times. So that was nice, of course. Yeah, watching the games, it was brilliant. But that, as I say, going back to that kind of initial point, that all culminated in that night up in Dingwall, which was, I remember thinking back that night. I vividly remember. So we were 2-0 down at that Ross County game and thinking, this is it. Like, I don't know where we go. I remember already going through it in my head, going, like, we'd drawn the first leg 1 each, should have won. You're going up there. It's effectively a cup final. It was a one-off game. Win, you're up. Lose, you're not. I remember sitting in the stand going 2-0 down and thinking, this is like, I couldn't then think about the game anymore, thinking like the conversations we're having tomorrow are horrendous. Like in my head going, but I don't even know how to start this. This thought, we got a goal just before half time, and it's mad how it just flips your mind. Like I'm going, I think we can do this. And speaking to the players afterwards, and Davey, I think he went in. And listen, Davey's known for his kind of hairdryer treatment, and he's not shy in telling players when they're not doing it. But I think he went back in and no, he sat down with the players and said, like, you will win this game if we go and get the next goal. And it was all positive, and it was all, this is it, you've got 45 minutes. Like, don't come back in here in 45 minutes time and go, if only I'd ran that a wee bit harder or made that pass a wee bit harder. Like, it was go and do it, leave it all out there. And so the boys went out in that second half was one of the best. So we got 2 quick goals, go 2-2, 3-2. And I just remember the ball, with the 4th goal, Tete Yengi goes through, and I remember as the ball hit the net, I just turned around and that was it. Just because I think it was literally the ball hit the net, it was full time. Busting into tears with daughters. I remember my daughter just screaming at me like, "Dad, you've done it! You've done it!" Almost like she'd seen that. Like, my daughter's 15, like she'd seen that. She's not young anymore. She's seen that pain that I'd lived. I feel like, and maybe a wee bit dramatic to say the pain, but she's not naive. They see it. They see it.
Pain,
and it was just that. And then there's videos. My wee boy was on the park and knee sliding to the fans, and it was just that moment for, I don't say abuse, but fans, they're entitled to their opinion, and it wasn't great the year before. And I remember fans kind of having a pop at me, and you were getting shouted at the boardroom and the director's box by fans, and those question marks. They were wanting, perhaps, should Davy still be the man, because now we're losing every week and we're getting relegated, and maybe if we change manager it'll be better, and kind of having to stand for him and almost stand side by side with Davy and going like, we're not changing it. Like, we believe that Davy, if we do go down, is the man, and he was. No, that was the simplest conversation. I've said this numerous times, but the easiest decision in the world after we got relegated, that Davy was going nowhere. He didn't want to leave, and John and I didn't want him to leave. No, we thought he'd done it before. He was the guy that could bring us back up, and it was nice. Not like a prove everybody wrong. It wasn't about that. It was that self. Like, I've never been in that position to decide whether we sack a manager or like I'd never had that responsibility, and to then be like, oh, like, do we have that conversation?
Wouldn't you like to have that conversation with Davy?
No,
if I'm honest.
no, that's it. And no, Davy was naive to that. No, we'd been relegated. No, there was any team that gets relegated, there's a question mark going. Well,
he would have knew himself the way. Like, see if he thought I'm not the man for that, I think he would have been big enough to say I'm not.
I think that's still the case with Davy. I think there's that element that I think Davy might never need to be sacked, because I think if things were at a point where he thought he'd lost it and lost the changing room or couldn't see it, I think he would go before it had to come to that. No, fingers crossed it never comes to that, and it's all positive as it is. But that decision was easy. No, at the time we sat down and there was Davy wanted to stay, John and I wanted them there. It never even really crossed our heads. And as I say, to sit there when we got promoted, we won the cup as well, so it was like almost like a double, cup win, promotion. Couldn't have went any better. I feel like I'd almost argue that winning the playoffs was more exciting than had we won the league. Those extra games and that excitement that night in Dingwall. That'll live in me. Football, work, personal, whatever it is. That night it'll be one of the greatest nights of my life, like across everything. And it was that justification that we made a gamble and or like you say, took a risk and were brave in terms of the budget, brave with the decisions we made, and we got where we wanted to be. And it
when you think of like football and how volatile it is, and like how quick managers lose jobs and stuff like that, I think like Big Ange there was like, it's like 39 days or something like that. Like, that's insane. What I've picked up through this, which I already knew about because I know you and I know the club, but every time we sort of connect, it all gets a wee bit deeper and I hear more about it and stuff, and like, that's like 5-6 years of quite, like, although there was highs and lows, like a lot of sustainability. Do you know, like, you've stuck together, you've actually rode through the storms, which probably brings us on quite nicely to today's times, like with Calvin coming in and the new ownership. And like, did that feel like a bit of like light at the end of the tunnel when that sort of came? And I'm assuming that's probably just settled a lot of the financial worries or the sort of that element of it.
I think it comes with an element of trepidation as well, because well, again, personally, I'm not a big fan of change, so you're like, oh, like, what does this mean for the club? What does this mean for me? But just before Calvin came in, or before we can dive into that, I think I'll be 6 years in February working at the club, been there forever, but 6 years there, and I've said this to you before, but there's almost in it, not that it's not a given that a football club can just exist. Now, how many clubs have went out of business? How many clubs have been liquidated? How many clubs have really struggled? There's clubs just now that are in really kind of perilous positions. And there's an element of sitting back here going, I've been involved, 2.5 years now at board level, but 6 years at the club full time, and almost count as a success. The club's still here, still thriving, we're now in the top league. We're one of the best 12 clubs in the country. And the league tables are, you get to where you are because your results dictate that, and we are one of the best 12 teams in the country. And sometimes you take a step back and go, it's actually, particularly last year, and you go through a championship season, it's actually a success at times that a club like that we're still still existing, but just to keep going.
I
You've got,
understand that though,
yeah,
because it relates to business as well. Like I would be lying if I didn't say every year when the financial year closes and we've had, you know, what we've turned over what we've turned over, we made profit and like, survival. You're
yeah,
like, we're still in existence because every year is very similar to yourselves where we take the budget right to the edge. We're like, right, how much more marketing we can do, what more can we bring into the building to try and like
yeah,
grow again,
yeah,
because you'll understand it as well. Like if you're not growing, you're not actually sustaining. Like I think if you decide, right, I'm going to maintain here, you actually go back the way.
yeah.
You sort of almost need to be growing just to stay where you were before. So we're very much like that. So I can relate to that where you're like being in business another year is a
I
massive
think so.
achievement every year for any
Yeah,
business actually, because it isn't a given, right, that, oh, well, you've started in a business, you could be however long established as you want, but
yeah.
one bad year could, in a lot of ways, kill most businesses,
Of course it is, and
really.
Livingston's been there
Hmm.
over the 30 years. Two administrations are demoted to
So it
the bottom
shows you how
tier. So
fine a line it
yeah,
really is.
and I don't doubt, or I know at the time where the club had those financial issues, the people on the board or the people involved in running the club were much more experienced business people than I am, than I'll ever be. So, and they struggled with it. And there was probably mitigating factors at times, and I don't remember exactly the reasonings, and there was tax issues, and there was various, but people who would have been, again, going back to that recruitment process, that the people that were at the club at those times would still be higher rated than I am right now to get a job
Yeah.
doing what I'm doing. But so you take that success. Every club's got its problems, but you take maybe Hibs and Hearts and Rangers and Celtic, they've got 16, 17,000 fans, 50, 60,000 fans at their ground every week in season tickets. So the financial element maybe isn't as big. I know that Hearts have had their troubles in recent times, but you know, at Rangers and Celtic, the problems of it, the monthly problems aren't how we pay the wages. It's bigger than that. It's how we're going to win the league.
It's more on the pitch, really,
That's
isn't
it.
it,
Yeah,
for them?
that's it.
Whereas a lot of for you is probably actually like is survival, a lot of it, and how do commercially viably still be here
Yeah,
and then build a team.
of course. Aye, that's it.
It's
And
it's almost can
it's
sometimes be the other way around for
yeah.
the bigger clubs.
And I'd always said that I'd love to spend some time at a club without those concerns. Now there was, and I know it's a phrase often used, but there was genuine sleepless nights last season at times going, like the wages are due in 2 weeks, this other bill's due, this is due, we're due that, and you're looking at what's coming in, and you're going, the maths don't math. I mean, it's how are we getting through this? And yeah, genuinely like, sitting up during the night going try to, and you're pushing maybe people who you know are going to pay and you've never had to chase them, and they're kind of then pushing back, oh, you know you'll get it. I'm like, I know, but I need it now. Like,
Yeah.
and look, we got there, which then, as I say, takes us into this part now where you know the club had been fairly open that we're needing investment. We need people in the building who could help, or people sort of involved with the club that could help. And we went through a couple of processes, and um, when Calvin kind of came at the forefront, that he was wanting to come on board and get involved. It was yeah, that mix of brilliant. This all sounds really good for the club. This is almost sounds too good. This is great. That there's going to be someone who's going to invest, and okay, if we're needing money at the end of the month, there's money there, and it's almost like okay. And then, as I said earlier on, that trepidation of wait a minute, okay, so these people are coming in. Am I where do I fit here? Am I now surplus to requirements? Or are they got a different way of doing it? Is Davy going to be surplus? Is John required? And you're kind of going from running it really tightly with Davey. No, it was myself and Davey in the building. John was in and out when he
Mhm.
could be. He had these other business things going on, and Dave and I were there every day, and you were probably in each other's office every day, and you're going right. Okay, we need to do this, and we offer this contract, but we don't know what league we're going to be in, and you were constantly just overthinking and bouncing things off, going how do we get through to now going okay, like that this sounds good, but are we now needed here because this
Mhm.
sounds like these guys are real business guys and there's real money there, and that's not my game. My game is probably local knowledge and Livingston, knowing the club, knowing the kind of feet on the ground. So Calvin came in and he came over to the first playoff game. I think it was Partick Thistle. First time we kind of met, we'd had Zoom calls, and John was more involved in that side. I think to go back to how it was when it was Davy, John, and I. Davy was the football guy, John was kind of the business guy, and I was the Livy guy, and it was kind of like,
Mhm.
and it worked. Like we had strengths and weaknesses. Like my business outright wasn't my strength,
Mhm.
wasn't Davy's strength, but Davy's strength was players and recruitment and tactics, and mine was not community but Livingston and knowing the club and what the club needed and dealing with that side, and John's was the business. So whilst we all lacked somewhere, we all kind of bounced off and complemented each other in other areas, which kind of made it work. I think that was my big thing to Calvin, was that like I want to be here if you want me here, but also I think I can add value to what the club has, or continue to add value with you here, because you can't be here, and the board now consists of 6 people, and it's only there's 3 of us in Scotland and three overseas, so it's not everybody in the building, and it's only really still me there every day. John's now in a couple of days a week. He's now more involved than he probably he's ever been for a long time. He's all the kind of legal side of things taken care of now with the club. John's freed up a lot of his time, not kind of dealing with that. He's in 2 or 3 times a week, actually helping with the club day to day, not dealing with club business, as opposed to maybe just popping in and catching up. He's now invested. We've got the new pitches went down, but there's discussions in terms of moving to grass if that needs to happen. So John's kind of taking that side on, and that'll be his kind of project alongside, still alongside Davy, with Davy's construction background. It makes sense for Davy to be involved in that. But so even that side of things, which might have happened anyway, if John had freed up that time. But now you've got that. I don't want to say comfortable, but there's now more voices, there's now more experience, and there is now a little bit more security on the financial side with Calvin's there. He's been fairly open that he wants to help the club grow. He wants the club to get to a point where we are competing in the top 6, or competing to be in the top 6 every year. It's not, we don't want to just be treading water, staying. Don't get me wrong, the aim is survival. It'll always be survival. Livingston, the Premiership, it's make sure you stay there.
And it takes time as well.
Of course it does, yeah.
Just back up, it can't be really, I don't think it can be like Rome wasn't built in a day type thing. There's a lot went on there,
Of course, and it's now you're having to change things again. So you're going from Championship set up to Premiership set up. It's totally different game by game.
A lot of change just for I don't think people realise how long change can take as well. And in football, you've not got a lot of time. And in business, like I even think of us moving to Livingston. So we've probably been in this premises here. It's it'll be 18 months maybe. But there was like a year before that where I was up here almost every day overseeing the refurb. We had a lot of work to do to get this ready. It was like an old it wasn't a derelict building, but it was an old speedy hire, and it had been quite run down, to be fair. So it just had like front trade counter, and then the rest of it was just basically a yard. So like what you see now with like the offices, and it's like that's all new. So there was like, I had almost like a year like in my head seeing us in the building and having all of that, but then we got to this point where we're like, right, we're going to actually need to move, and the staff are like up in arms, are like, oh, like, because the phones just have to be off for like a few days, even a week, and you're like, oh, how's customers getting a hold of us? And then you've got people working from home and doing all this stuff. And I think even now, like, there's probably still a bit of settling in, which is 18 months down the line, and it's just somebody that they could live in Armadale or Whitburn or Bathgate or whatever, and they used to travel to Bathgate, but now they come to Livingston, and even just getting out of here at 5 o'clock's like a big thing. And so like to take all of that and really and just have to march forward and keep pushing forward I don't think people appreciate just how much change there is. So to take that over back to the football club, it's like to go down, to come straight back up. Just like people go, oh, right, like that's a total different set. It just takes time, and I guess you've not got it as the thing. Like we've seen that with different football managers and stuff. I think it's getting worse and worse actually now in terms of how long people are getting. But like change just does take that wee bit of time.
I mean certainly the change element, it does. Like you can't just flip flop from champ to prem and be able to just to change things like that. And again, with new ownership, it's totally different. The time thing, I think, particularly in football, I think is heavily social media driven to an extent. Though, everybody's now got a platform to voice, and I can liken it to 20 years ago. You would walk into the pub and everybody would be talking about football. But see if that guy over there was talking rubbish, you could just walk away and get your pint over there and talk to your mates. Now it's like they're on social media, they can tag you in social media, and they can shout Monday to Sunday how bad everyone is. Whereas before you'd maybe moan about it after the game, read the paper on a Sunday, and you went to your work, and by Monday night you were looking forward to the next game. Whereas now it's like it's constant, and there's more analysis than ever before. There's Monday night football, I think it starts at 6 o'clock and finishes at 12. It's like, and it's an analysis. I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily. That a lot of the tactical stuff's nice. It's good to watch, and quite like the input for some of the pundits or managers or such. But from this just the social media out aspect, it's relentless at times. And then that year we got relegated, it was like you couldn't catch a break. You actually start then reclusing a bit through social media because it's not to hide away from negativity or
But
criticism.
that's not really going to take you forward, is the
No,
reality.
and then you end up, all it takes is for one person to maybe push you over the line, you bite back, and then you're the bad one because I'm paying my money, and I also understand that, but you can't just batter me all the time. And
I
then
think it's hard as well because, like, and this is a question I was going to ask you, but like, do you know how, like, so there was probably a bit of like when you first came into the club properly, like a sense that you had a bit of like imposter syndrome. Like, does that ever leave, or do you think that just kind of stays there? Like, is there a time now where you're like, no, I've been in this job a while now, I know, like, or do you still have those kind of
uh,
doubts?
I, I don't think it ever leaves.
Mm.
I've said this. I said this numerous times. Particularly when I took on the role with the chief executive, I think that was massive for me. Trying to go over the fact that like every day it was like, like how am I doing this? Like I'm
It's an
not the guy.
identity thing,
Of
yeah.
course, yeah. And then
Because you're like,
not
you're probably on one hand just going, I'm just a Livy fan,
that's it.
but I'm actually the
And I think
CEO.
there was maybe a wee bit which is probably people don't see. You're going to boardrooms away from home, and you're walking into other boardrooms, and you're shaking hands with the CEO of Rangers, who's multi-millionaire, who's been all over the world in football roles, and driving this car and telling you about this, and I'm going, oh, like I am miles and miles away for this. And then that was fine. Then you're going to the next game and you're away to Celtic and you're going into their boardroom, and I'm going, like, I would walk in genuinely thinking like these guys are going to be looking, going, are you kidding me? Like this is the Louis CEO, this guy. And it, I'm saying it took me ages to go over that. There's still a bit of that there. That I think that'll always be, and I think that comes from not to go full X Factor like my journey, but I think it's. I was never like, I've never went to uni and then went and ran this business and sold this business and bought this and then was recruited going to Livingston and Invest. It was like went in to do as a kid volunteer roles and done this and done that and became involved in media, and before you know it, you're kind of you work your way through the club. Now I think that also works. It helps you because you have a grounding, you have an overview of the club. Don't know everything, but I know a hell of a lot more about all aspects of the club than probably most chief executives know about their club, because I've been there, I've lived it, I've been the fan, I've done the journey, I've went through the turnstiles, and I know what it's like on that side. So I think there's positives to it as well, but yeah, on a personal level, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I felt more confident, and this probably comes from that learning, but I felt more confident last year in the championship because I felt like I was coming down, having that experience, and could it get any worse than that relegation season, that feeling of failure. But then again, it's just how your own mind works. You start doubting yourself because you're walking in here going, these CEOs, so you go to Airdrie, you go to Morton, you go to Hamilton, are they guys looking at me going, this guy was in the Premiership? Like, and it becomes like you just go through the process again. It's like my biggest, not even biggest critic, but my own brain at times is the one that was not stopping me, but at times you're going, give yourself a break, like
I get
relax. Like you're here and you're still here, and the club's still here, and we've been promoted, and so I think this year it's been a wee bit different. I think coming back into the Premiership, I've now been the chief executive in the Premiership, been the chief executive in the Championship, won that promotion, been part of the club, winning a promotion, winning a cup, and you start thinking, okay, maybe I'm okay, maybe I'm okay at this, maybe I do know what I'm doing. Like I've got by. Am I the best for the job? Definitely not. Could there have been? Is there better people like that? Of course there is. Like anyway, wherever you are. But I think the big thing for me was when Calvin came in and we spoke, and I had that fear that okay, this could be my timer might be on here. And one of the first things nobody be spoken, he couldn't have been any more positive and any more reassuring that like he can't be here. And even if he had been, my role at the club was massively important to him. Like I know the club better than most from board level perspective, from the running of the club, from the day to day. It would be naive of him to then, or his words, not mine, but perhaps naive of him just to bin me and throw someone in who didn't know anything, who was going to have to learn, and what's a
Then there would
big
be
transition.
there could be a big disconnect at that point as well.
Well, and don't worry, sometimes a club, depending on the situation, needs that reset, needs that clean out.
revamp.
But I think when that transition period for us from champ to prem, and you're going through that change process, that you need that continuity as well in the building. You need people who know how to do things. And listen, I don't dare say that I don't know if I've got a job at Livingston for life. Like I don't know where the future takes me, whether that be the decisions mine or someone else's. But I think that reassurance probably gave me a little bit of belief that okay, there's someone who, no, Calvin, who is a big business person, who has been successful, who has done his due diligence in the club, and he's identified that he still wants me to be part of that. No, had he then came in and said, no sure it's you, Dave. That I'd have probably found myself in a place going, oh my word, like someone's actually come in and went, you're not good enough.
Quite a knock to take, aye.
Yeah, whereas I think having that belief from someone who doesn't really know you, but has then watched what you've done and you've interacted with them and you've went through budgets and you've had board meetings and they're going, no, like you are.
He was quite vocal about that when he came in as well, about like how passionate like the group that was already there was, and that he was keen to keep that moving on. But you can see what he's been through. Like this is probably, I don't know if a lot of people would know about it. Like I think some of this might be new to people. I know some of it, but like that 5-6 year journey is like crazy. And that, like we've not really spoke about the football because we said we'd make this a wee bit timeless because there'll be a lag and the result that weekend there will only be the result when this comes out and all the rest of it. But like I think it's been quite good to see that behind the scenes and how hopefully it's given a good bit of insight to like how, like the business operation as well. But you spoke about like them sleepless nights and all of that stuff. It's just, but that imposter syndrome bit. The reason I was asking was because like I get that. So I've been in business 13 years now, and similar to like yourself, like what you were saying, I went to college to become a qualified roofer and that kind of qualifications. But in terms of business, like I didn't have any finance background, marketing, sales, leading people, managing people, zero experience. So like 13 years down the line as well, I sometimes go, when are you there? Right. Oh no, I'm just like, because I think it's quite a natural thing. And I think anybody who says that they can just switch that off, because I sometimes hear something that's maybe been said or somebody says something and it, like you do doubt yourself. So the reason I was asking about the imposter syndrome one is if you've got that bit of imposter syndrome and then this fan's saying that, then another 10 say it or something, then you're going, maybe they're right.
Yeah.
And that's like, so I could relate to what you were saying when you said you just kind of tried to come back from social media a bit, because in these roles that any of us are in, it's not possible to buy into that. You have to have your own vision and go, nah, like whether like I'm uncertain or whatever in this moment, I've just got to push forward. So I think you've done that really well.
It's been difficult. I think the thing that stood out just with it, again, that imposter syndrome, we had a fans forum at the start of last season, so we've just been relegated and no, admittedly the not so much the relations with the fans, but fans were annoyed being relegated, and I think it's almost that you become a victim of your own success. So that the longer we stayed in the Premiership, it just became a given that we'll always just be there, and we should be looking to kick on. And like, no, but it's still every season we're in the Premiership was a success.
Like you were punching above your weight, like them top 6 finishes and stuff like that shouldn't really be happening at Livingston, but it was.
And every season for me that we stayed up was a success, and just being. It's not just like you should just be happy to, like you say, stand still and just be in the league. But I think people quite grasp how difficult it is for a Livingston, and we found that last season the gap between us and the other teams was getting bigger and bigger in terms of resource and finance, and a lot of teams were getting investment. Dundee had American takeover, and Hearts have done brilliantly in terms of the investment for the fans. The foundation of Hearts was tremendous, and Hibs had the Black Knight Group take over, and a lot of the clubs that were maybe we were just on the coattails of, it felt like that gap was getting bigger and bigger, and it was like at the end of the season you were going, right, if we stayed up it's going to be really difficult, and I said, if we got to maybe January, February, the season we got relegated, I remember it was quite toxic's the wrong word, but it was quite, every game it was like really bad. The abuse at Davy, and then started creeping in at John and I for perhaps not getting rid of Davy, and then for us just for being in our roles and the club doing it poorly, despite the fact that Livingston being in the Premiership was still incredible. When you look at the teams that were in the Championship and that we were in the Premiership, and I think that because we're doing well, it was like fans were expecting you to do better and better. But there was a leveling out point where we were never going to be able to go beyond, because we didn't have the resource, we don't have the fan base, we didn't have the structure. So it was like we're never going to, almost finishing 10th should be champion, like winning the league for Livingston. But that's hard for fans when we're flirting with top 6 and we got to a cup final and you're going, oh, the club are going backwards. It's like, we're not. It was actually, we were maybe overperforming, and now we're levelling out. And I remember sitting January, February time, the season got relegated, and it was during a game, and I remember fans and hearing this, and there was a guy leaned over and had a proper kind of pop at me, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I think if we stay up this season, I'm walking away. Like I'm done here. Which was funny because people saying, what do you mean if you get relegated? I'm like, no, if we stay up, like I'm calling it time. And then I've never really spoken openly too much to anybody about that, and spoke to a few kind of close or people that I kind of confide in, and like, why? And like, because I don't know if I've got the fight to, if we last day stay up and brilliant, if we celebrating, I don't know if I've got the fight to do this again next year, where I expect us to be fighting to stay up again. And I don't know if I've got another year of sitting here and having people shouting at me or like watching them shouting at the manager who were all 7 days a week, like 14, 15, 16 hours a day at times in the building, trying your damn hardest to keep that club going and improve the club and improve the commercial side and improve the on-field side. I honestly don't know if I can do it. Like I'll enjoy the night that we stay up if that happens and we last minute winner and we stay in the league. I'll celebrate it, but I think I'm done. And it's like, but I'll tell you this: if we get relegated, someone will need to remove me physically here because I'm not leaving if we get relegated. Like if we go down, I'm making it my mission to get us back up. And when that is, unless somebody tells me I'm no longer here, I'm not walking away till we're back in the Premiership. And then you go down and you're going right, okay, and it's a fresh start, and the fans then buy in, and there was that excitement. I think maybe this time last year or the start of last season we spoke, and there was that like, okay, like we could win every game this season, whereas the season before was like we could lose every game this season. And it was like we beat them firm and we got through the cup stage and we started winning, and it became kind of us Falkirk and Ayr for a long time, but we're winning and we got to the final of the cup and we won the cup, and it was then a two-way fight for us and Falkirk. But the energy at the stadium and everybody was then back on side, and you were scoring goals, you were winning games. Everybody was like, okay, who we got this week? Morton, we could win that. Who we got this week? Dunfermline, we could win that. Who we got Falkirk? We will win that. Like you were kind of going through games, and it got to the tail end and we get promoted, and there was that buzz. And then you start the summer, you're in the Premiership again, and it's a totally different mindset and position in your own head. So we bounced into the Premiership, and I'm then excited again for it. Of course, that probably ties in with the takeover and the new ownership and a bit more structure and people on board. But we were going into the Premiership and going, I can't wait for this again. Like I can't wait. We're now, everybody's on side. We're going up excited. We're off a season of winning games. Of course, it's going to be hard, and of course, we'll lose more than we'll win. Of course, that'll happen. But it was almost like it needed that wee backward step to then go right. Okay, reset here. If we win this league, we go back up on a high. Whereas that season that we went down, had we maybe just survived, it would just been another season of kind of like not doom and gloom, but this is difficult. And
it was like that reset was actually needed.
Probably, yeah. And I think Dave and I said that we sat here and done the podcast, the club podcast. I think we almost said it's maybe almost the best thing could have happened. Not at the time; it's horrendous at the time.
No, it's terrible.
And we had to like there was 2 or 3 members of staff who had to like go, and you had to trim the squad down a little bit, and there was relegation clauses because the club would have couldn't afford to pay Premiership wage in the Championship. So you have to then start assessing things again. We had a meeting with the Supporters Trust over the summer, but after we got relegated, and they were saying, no, what the club doing to make sure they're self-sufficient and aren't going to go under. And listen, I've just sat with the chef who had a meeting with a fruit and veg guy about trying to get apples and oranges and bananas cheaper. Wow. And I've just done a meeting with the milk guy. We brought a new milk company in because we could save 30 pence per carton of milk. And it's like, and they're looking at you going, no, but what about? And we're going, no, this is how far down we're taking it to try and make sure that we're saving as much money and we're doing things. It's not just, get rid of that player because that will save however much grand a year. It's it's all these other wee things that like, okay,
look after the pennies and look after the pounds.
Do we need to go and buy all this? Like, do we need to buy, I'm not even lying, we need to go and buy 1,000 envelopes just now. Just go and buy, let's get 100 now, and then when we need more, and it sounds ridiculous, but you're going, no, just let's make sure we're doing this as streamlined as possible. So, so they then take it back to this summer when you've got somebody coming in and backing you and backing the club, and it's Calvin's been open honest. It's not I'm going to throw millions and millions of pounds at this and we're going to sign loads of players and we're going to compete. It's nowhere near that.
It kind of doesn't need that.
No.
I know that would be great, obviously, but it's almost like it just needs to be sustainable and like there wasn't a massive amount wrong. It was going pretty well, probably overperforming in those top 6 finishes and stuff. And like you said, just staying up and surviving, didn't get the credit it deserved. But I think by going down and coming back up probably showed that probably was the reset. That probably maybe just adds a few years on for like the fans and everybody really just to be sort of grateful of being in the Premier League and how difficult it actually is. Yeah. But I think it just needs sustainability and that probably goes a lot further than like nobody wants to see like a few million thrown about and then a couple of years time it's struggling and there could be.
That's the thing people don't understand though. I think so. Calvin has the funds to go and to give the club as much as he wanted. I feel like if that was what he wanted to do, that just causes more problems within the building. So you've got a squad of players, 25 players in the changing room. So if Davy then goes, right, okay, I'm going to go and spend £500,000, buy this player, he's going to be on 10 grand a week and he's going to come in and be our striker. Now, of course, there's already at the club, there's different players on different money, and you've got your first team regulars, you've got your squad players, you've got your maybe fringe players. That's just any squad is going to be like that. That's you can't have 25 first team starters because you can only start 11. You're going to have 14 guys furious every week. But if Davy goes and does that and he brings in a guy 10 grand a week, then you've got your highest paid player at the club at the minute going, wait a minute, because players talk, let's not kill ourselves on. Everybody will know and changing what each other's on. He's on 10 grand a week. Well, I want a bit of that. So then Davy's door gets chapped and he comes, well, how come he's on that? Okay, so he gets that. And then the next player goes, well, wait a minute, I've just scored 5 goals in the last 5 games. I want that. And the goalkeeper goes, well, I've just kept 3 clean sheets. So, and before you know it, you start creating this. I don't know how to even phrase it, but you start creating
just
this problem. That's it. You're creating this problem in the changing room that before you know it, your wage bill's sky high because you've brought that one player.
It brings a big entitlement into the club.
Well, that's it. What it really bring does. That one player in and that star player on high money. And I get it. Sometimes there will be clubs like your Messi's and Ronaldo's will be on more than everybody else in the changing room, but that gap between what our players are on versus what that player would be on would be that big that you actually then have a problem as opposed to solving your problem. So you then have unhappy players who were performing okay before, so you go and try and bring another, and it just becomes, and then, not dare I say, then that wage bill is not sustainable without someone literally every month just writing a cheque. And that's not, as much as Calvin's there and Calvin's invested in the club emotionally now already and invested as a person, but what we don't want as a club, and Calvin would be the first to say this, you don't want somebody who's now here who just has to write a cheque every month to make sure you get through the month, because that it's just no sustainable at any level.
Well, you've done a good job of being sustainable that last 5-6 years through like the worst troubling times. So why would you ruin all of them good practices to go, all right, this is fine now? Like, the pressure's off. Let's just go and throw money around and.
That's it, and it becomes a different problem. You think from the outside, you think, it'd be brilliant, just go and sign that player. And it's like, we're not at a level where we're different with Rangers and Celtic, where everybody's on good money. Not saying our boys aren't, but
it's the thing is as well, like it's about getting like, and there was a good job done on it last year. It's like it's getting like the right group of players in. It's no one player's no changing a massive amount. So going and throwing money on that one big player, it's like, again, it's probably no really Livingston's thing. It's probably like, rather than like splashing it on one player, it's like, let's get a couple of players here that will really add to this group. And sometimes it's been like, we need a wee bit extra experience, and like it's this, or we need a wee bit more youth coming through, and it's like just getting that balance right. So I think sustainability is the key, really.
Having that, like you just said it exactly that, having the right people as well. So there's a lot to be said for the characters you have in particular in the changing room, because that environment can go from the best environment to a toxic environment, and that's when, probably a strong word, but when that one player starts to leak that bit of poison, so someone's not happy, they're grumbling, they're not playing, they've been subbed, whatever it is, came in for training, they turn to the player next, that session was rubbish, blah, 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 and then that player then goes, was it rubbish? Maybe it was rubbish, actually, and then that wee bit of poison seeps into him, and before you know it, they're then at lunch together, sitting together, and they then pull this other player in, and you have to, that's Davy's job to handle that and make sure that doesn't happen. And it's not just keeping every player happy all the time. You're not going to do that. Say you can only have 11 players starting, so you're going to have players every single week. More players don't start than start, so you're going to have more people unhappy. And by the way, you cannot bring 5 on for the bench, so you've got your 9 subs are unhappy because they're subs. Only 5 of them can play, so 4 are really unhappy, and you've got 4 or 5 who have not even made the squad. So there's more unhappy players every Saturday than there is happy players. Now, winning games helps that, because everybody wants to be part of a winning team. But the makeup and the real, you start to see the real character of people is when you're losing the games. How do people go around? And I look at, in our changing room, someone like an Andrew Shinnie, played at top level, he's had a great career. He offers that bit of stability in the building, I think, as a senior pro, level-headed, good speaker, good teammate, good colleague, good person for the off-field staff. Would never come in and not say good morning to everybody. Would never. It's not all about him now, and I don't know if that's that transition for him. And listen, Andy's a good person, a nice person anyway. But I think he acknowledges that he sees his role in the squad. That he knew this season. I think that he's not going to be playing 90 minutes from the start every single week. He knew that. He knew that when he re-signed this season. He's got a different role to play within the squad. So he came on at Hibs on Saturday. It wasn't a great team, or came on at Hibs wasn't a great team performance. But he was probably one of the ones who maybe got pass marks when he came on. It was almost trying to lift the team.
The energy did change.
The game was almost done, but he's came on, and it's kind of like and you take that in the changing room, because when the manager goes in and says his piece and then leaves, it's what then happens after that, and you need people in the changing room. Listen, I don't doubt that Shinnie will be unhappy at times if he doesn't get on or doesn't play or we get beat, but I think you need the people
But he's not going to leak that bad
no,
energy
and he'll drag people up, and I
Mhm.
think he'll make people accountable. So someone is then mouthing off. I think that you need people in the changing room who'll not nip it, but almost like what are you doing here? Like what is it you're trying to achieve by gobbing off about the manager or gobbing off about your teammate, or like
Culture's huge, really.
Of course it is,
and we see that even in our business. It's totally different because we've no got sort of almost right. You've got subs there that's unhappy or whatever, but there's the same things around, like people talking about what money people are owing and why this is like that and why is that like that, and we've done quite a lot around the culture, and we probably, I think sometimes we actually run it a wee bit like a football team in a sense. Like we'll try and get them all together, and it's almost like a team talk, and then it's like check-in points. So it's almost like it's not like a pre-match, pre-job team talk, if you know what I mean. But it's like my brother's does like a with the roofers every Friday. He'll get them in and they'll talk about the core values of the company. They'll share the wins. They'll share the kind of losses. Maybe like a wee bit of a lion meeting, no a Livy lion, but like a I don't know if you've ever seen the framework, but it's like last week, how did we do? What went well? What didn't go so well? Issues, any, and then opportunities anybody came across, and then right, next week what we got to do? What can we do different to rectify the issues? And I always call it that, almost like what's the mood in the camp. I've always kind of used that phrase, like, you know, if I'm unsure about anything, I always say to my brother, like, what's the mood in the camp out there? And he's maybe, because I'm not out on site or anything like that now, but he'll be out on site and he'll go, all right, they're quite unhappy about this. And so we're always looking at, right, how do, like you said as well earlier, like you can't keep everybody happy, but how do you get it to a point where you go, look, here's our core values, guys, here's the standards, here's what we're all kind of holding each other to account for, and we'll let them hold us accountable as well. So it's like, if we've not been explaining certain information, or we've made a change and we've not told them about it, whatever it may be, then we say, right, that's fine, you can come and moan to us about that, that's acceptable. Chap the door and say, look, you should have dealt with that better. So we work off an above and below the line kind of culture, which is another framework called ORBED. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but above the line is ownership, accountability, responsibility, and below the line is blame, excuse, denial. So that's where the sort of ORBED, and then so above the line's like a victor mentality, but the below the line's victim. And so like we need to do that as well at the top. But I think it sounds similar to what you are doing as well. It's like there has to be a standard, and then you've got to have those kind of key players like your Andrew Shinnies as example. Like he'll be a champion of that type of culture. But I think we could go on all day, mate, to be honest. So we'll probably wrap up on that. But it was a very interesting episode, and I even learnt some things that I didn't know about you or the club as well. But it's an ever-evolving journey. But wish you all the best in the future, mate, and thanks for coming on and sharing that.
Appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Good man.
Cheers.
Well, guys, thank you for watching to the end of this episode. As always, remember to subscribe and leave a comment down below to let us know what you thought, and I'll see you on the next one.